There, my name is Tyler Danzel, and I am seeking a non-degree endorsement in building leadership at Florida State University, and this is my ePortfolio. I'm going to start out going over my goals. First of all, professional goals. I would like to, in the next 5 years, become an assistant principal and then a principal in Wichita USD 259. 6 to 10 years from now, I see myself continuing to work as a principal in that same school district. Beyond 10 years, when I started this program, I half jokingly said that a long time from now I would become the principal at Hodgman County High School, which is the school that I attended and graduated from. Go home, take care of my parents, do things like that. I don't know if that's going to happen or not, but that is a possibility. District leadership may also be a possibility, and who knows, there may be opportunities outside of education that present themselves. Personal goals. In 5 years, my wife and I would like to be completely out of debt, have our house paid off, all that good stuff. I'd like to do some hiking, specifically the Elk River Hiking Trail. Um, Traveling the country with my family is a big goal of mine, and at age 65, be able to retire comfortably. To summarize my leadership philosophy, it basically boils down to two different philosophies. First of all, the democratic leadership philosophy. Um, I like the idea of lots of different ideas. I think better decisions are made if you know lots of different sides to a story. Also, the servant leadership theory. I believe that, especially in education, we are servants first. We are there to serve others and help others. It doesn't necessarily mean that we do the work for them. It definitely doesn't mean that, but we are there to help them as best we can. Here's my program of study. Of course, there were 6 required classes that we took as part of the non-degree endorsement program, and then one elective. The elective I chose was AEP 855, Educational Leadership. I started my classes in June of 2017. Took 2 last summer, 2 in the fall, an intersession class in December and January, and then I took my final 2 classes in the spring of 2018. Here's my resume. As you can see by looking over it, I've had kind of a colorful teaching career. I've been in a lot of different places, had a lot of different experiences, mostly good, 1 or 2 that weren't so good. Um, I've coached a lot as well. Everywhere I've went, I've been a coach, um, mostly football and basketball. I've also had a lot of sport management experience. I spent some time as an athletic director at Norwich High School. Also owned a sport-related business for a time. I volunteer in my community in several different ways. Of course, currently attending Fort Hays State University. I also have a master's degree from Wichita State and a bachelor's degree from Kansas State University. I also am a registered high school football official and softball umpire. Creating the annotated bibliography was a task that I wasn't very excited about, to be honest. Um, I kind of drug my feet on it for a while, trying to figure out how I wanted to do it, what needed to go in there. Once I really started researching different articles, I found the use in it. Um, I found lots of different good articles. I tried to focus on articles that would help me as a principal in Wichita USD 259. Um, Being a very diverse school district, I found several articles about issues relating to diversity, both with teachers and students. Found an article about teacher evaluation that was very useful, student discipline, hiring processes, interview processes, things like that. So, again, wasn't real excited about the annotated bibliography at first, but it ended up being a very useful exercise. Next, I'm going to go through my district activities that I participated in. First of all, I was a member of the Derby Middle School Building Leadership Team. Next, I spent 2 hours as part of a district focus group that was looking at our district phone situation. As part of the building leadership team, I was also part of the instructional review committee, and we spent some time looking at um, instruction throughout the building schedule, things like that. I was able to take part in the supplemental review committee for the district, and we looked at supplemental salaries throughout the district, and to see how they compared to our neighboring districts. Another, as being part of the building leadership team, another thing I was part of is school improvement committees, and I was the co-chair of the student culture committee. And then finally, the Derby Middle School staff met with district leadership as they talked about the bond vote that we had coming up. The bond vote took place in February, but they met with us in December to talk to us about how the bond would affect Derby Middle School specifically, and also how we could talk to families about the bond. Secondary, I was a little worried about getting enough elementary activities and whether or not that time would be worthwhile, but I ended up really enjoying my time in the elementary schools. I actually spent a lot of time in schools outside of my district. I spent all of my, basically every day I had off the school year, I spent in a different school district. So in February, I spent time in two Wichita elementary schools. That was Benton and Peterson elementary schools. I spent almost my entire spring break in the Dodge City schools. So on March 19th, I was at Ross Elementary. Park Hill Elementary in Derby was really good to me. The principal there is Sandy Rusher, and she was always welcoming to me. And in September, I attended a PTO meeting one evening. And then the next day after school, I attended a PIT team meeting where they discuss ways to help make students more successful. I spent a day at St. Peter's Catholic School just down the road from my house. I spent two different occasions at Amelia Earhart Elementary in the Goddard School District. The principal there is actually my neighbor, Mr. Tracy Gibbons. And in November, I spent part of a day at Norwich School. It's a K-12 building southwest of Wichita. I actually used to teach there. Again, Park Hill. I took a personal day once to spend the day with Mrs. Rusher. In the morning, they had administrator meetings, and in the afternoon, I shadowed her in her building. I spent 7 hours in December at St. Mark's School. St. Mark's is a K-8 building in the Renwick School District, and my wife teaches there. And then again, over my spring break, I spent a day at two different elementary schools, Willroads Gardens Elementary in Dodge City, and then Beeson Elementary in Dodge City. And finally, let's talk about my secondary activities. Once again, spent a lot of time in districts apart from the district school district. So in February, I was at Pleasant Valley Middle School, which is part of Wichita USD 259. The principal there is Mr. Walter Givens, and he is also a neighbor of mine. Spent a couple of hours one day shadowing two Derby High School assistant principals. On March 22nd, I was at Dodge City High School all day. We spent the first part of the day with the athletic directors, and then the rest of the day we were kind of shuttled between different assistant principals. I spent 7 hours in March at Comanche Middle School in Dodge City. I spent a lot of time helping the athletic directors at both Derby Middle School and Derby North Middle School, assisting with volleyball tournaments, with wrestling, being the administrator on duty for a basketball game, things like that. In February, I spent the afternoon with Mr. Sean Hollis. He is the principal at the Goddard Academy, which is an alternative school, part of USD 265. In September, I was actually asked to be sort of the substitute assistant principal at Derby Middle School. Our assistant was gone for the day, and our principal asked me to step in for her. And it was probably, of all the activities, the best experience I had because it gave me a true sense of what it is like to be a principal for a day. Mr. Shipley, our principal at Derby Middle School, asked me to review the student handbook and look for redundancies, so I spent 2 hours doing that. And then once again during my spring break, I spent some time in Dodge City. So on March 19th, I shadowed Mr. Matt Turner. He's the principal of the alternative education program for Dodge City. I'm not going to obviously go through my reflection in depth, but I do want to touch on some points that I talk about in the reflection. So first of all, when I got into this program, I didn't actually know that I had to do 150 hours of interning or practicum work. I'm not sure how I missed that, but I think it was in August when I realized that, and I wanted to get it all done in that school year, and so I really started scrambling. Uh, had to get creative. Realized I probably wasn't going to be able to do all those hours just within the school and still do my job well. So I came up with the idea of spending my days off in other schools. And I had enough friends in different schools, enough people that I knew that allowed me to do that. So, as I mentioned earlier, I spent a lot of time in other school districts such as Wichita, Renwick, Dodge City, things like that, and was able to really get a good sense of what it was like to be a principal and how it might be different in different school districts. Um, I've been a high school or middle school teacher my entire career, and I was also an athletic director at one point, and just kind of assumed that my best path into administration would be as an assistant principal athletic director, and it may still be. Um, but I've come to the realization throughout my practicum experience that I think my personality best fits in the elementary setting. I really like the younger kids. I've been a T-ball coach for a couple of years and really like working with that age of kids. Um, and again, I just feel like my personality best fits that. I also would be nervous about all the late nights that are associated with being an athletic director. I've lived through that once, and I have young children myself now, and I really don't want to be gone that much. So I really think elementary principal is the route that I want to go. In summary, this has been a very, very good program for me. It's worked well with my schedule. I was able to get it done in just a little bit over a year. And I feel like all the experiences that have been associated with this program have given me a really good idea of what it means to be a principal. I had more than one principal tell me throughout this time when I said, I'm not sure if I'm ready to do it. They said, you'll never be ready. Being a principal is a big step, and and even though this has been a great program and I've learned a lot, there's probably going to be no experience like actually becoming a principal. And there's going to be a lot of on the job learning, just like it was when I started teaching. I'm very excited about where my career is headed, and I'm hopeful that in the next year or two, I'll be able to put my education to use and become a principal somewhere. Thank you for your time. Have a great day.